Hello and welcome to another marvelous video. As we near the end of Season 3 of From, let's talk about one of the most important pieces of information and the biggest mystery, the worms inside Boyd in Season 2. Clearly, these worms are the only weapon known to defeat these monsters that haunt Fromville. But bizarrely enough, the show has been very silent on the issue this season. And why is that? Are the worms more dangerous than we realize, or are they the hope of salvation for all people? Today we dig deeper into the mystery of Boyd's worms, beginning with what makes them remarkable, up to secrets that may still be kept hidden in the future. Buckle up. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What were the worms in Boyd's blood? The worms had become an interesting plot point in Season 2 of From, as they became entangled with Boyd Stevens' horrifying journey. When Harold Perrineau's character Boyd discovers Martin, an odd man imprisoned inside a cabin, these enigmatic worms crop up for the first time. Martin was a former US Marine Corps soldier. That's all we know about him, thanks to his tattoo. Martin, does that ring a bell? Well, close lookers would love to point out that we've seen this name before. In Season 1, we see a map in Boyd's office with Martin's name on it, so it's most likely that it was the same Martin who must have ended up going into the woods and entered a faraway tree, just like Boyd. When Boyd gets exposed to Martin's blood, he unknowingly becomes infected with worms. As the story progressed, the worms unraveled their strange, multifaceted nature. Boyd goes through this deeply disorienting experience as he feels them preside over him, making him question his autonomy and the nature of the infection. However, in Season 2, Episode 6, Boyd realizes an important feature of the worms. He can pass them to others, just like how Martin passed them to him. This realization made Boyd try and experiment desperately against the creatures haunting the town, as he had to give his blood to his son Ellis. Equipped with a knife, he confronts one of the creatures outside, a particular one identifiable by its wicked smile, and slits its throat before mingling his blood with that of the creature. What happens next is crazy. The worms react immediately and launch a vicious attack from within, killing the smiley creature. This gives the worms a whole new role in itself, the role of being the only weapon that works against the scary monsters that threaten the townspeople. At this point, it appears that Boyd has successfully transferred the worms to the creature and has finally been free of their influence. He was able to give blood to his son. However, this is exactly the point where this freedom raises new questions as to Boyd's future. Has he finally shaken off control of the worms, or will something much deeper, much more unexpected return to haunt him? Also, his Parkinson's symptoms have disappeared. So, did the worms cure him? Are they a blessing, a curse, or something different? I guess there are just too many unanswered questions that need some attention quite soon. Let's see if we can find some answers from the interesting theories which have been floating around in the From fan community. Theories about the worms: a parasite, a curse, or something else. Theory 1. Are the worms secret soldiers from a rival monster faction? Just think of Fromville as a setting of some twisted, high-stakes video game. Within this scheme, it appears the monsters we fear don't constitute the only supernatural power seeking dominance over the town. Perhaps, in an opposing force against them are the worms. According to this hypothesis, these worms are not simply organisms, but could actually form a kind of rival race. This theory is heavily inspired by the video game-like mechanisms that are built into From. Take, for example, just the surreal aspect of the faraway tree, where people enter inside one tree and somehow end up at an entirely different place. This theory implies that it isn't magic trickery of any sort, it just sort of feels like a map-based teleportation, something often encountered in an immersive RPG game. If everyone in town were playing by the video game rules, then different monster groups fighting each other makes sense. It's like watching two armies collide, with humans perhaps being mere pawns or resources for which both armies are fighting. One fan points out some of these gaming similarities while drawing a parallel between the worms as a faction there to undermine or dismantle the main monster threat. It brings a tactical element into the show by pointing out that the real conflict isn't necessarily between the humans and the monsters, but it's between two supernatural groups. The worms could be saving people or maybe influencing people to gain an edge over their monstrous enemies. So as the series unfolds, perhaps we'll get to witness a war between the nightmare creatures and the parasites. Theory 2. Are the worms a symbiotic entity with their own dark agenda? This theory speculates that the worms may be more than just a weapon or side effect. Rather, they're sentient life forms with their own survival instincts, needs, and motives. Some fans believe that these worms are symbiotic in nature, feeding on or manipulating hosts to reach their ends. This would mean an even more complex ecosystem in which layers of parasitic entities coexist and sometimes clash with each other. Some fans suggest that the monsters could be reanimated townsfolk, their bodies possessed and controlled by these parasitic creatures. The fact that Martin repeatedly referenced a vague "they" with lines like "they come when the music plays" hints that these worms could indeed be a distinct evil force, separate from the monsters we see. Further, the brutal way the monsters eviscerate their victims, completely disemboweling them, might have more strategic implications. One fan on Reddit theorized that this could be a means of denying usable hosts to the worm-like parasites. If the monsters are aware of their symbiotic competitors, the carnage might serve a defensive purpose, keeping their adversaries from gaining ground by eliminating any possible hosts. Number 3. Are these worms part of Boyd's hallucination in a dementia facility? This theory that all that Boyd goes through and from is some kind of alternate reality connected to a dementia facility provides an incredibly interesting look into deeper meanings within the show. Some fans believe that the worms and monsters could be the distorted worldviews of people suffering from cognitive deterioration, where the broken realities found in memory care settings are reflected. This is further emphasized by the discussions about Boyd's condition and how seemingly he's getting worse in mental state, thus simulating symptoms of Parkinson's disease and even Alzheimer's. According to one Reddit user, memory care facilities tend to look like small towns, and sometimes the caregivers even play a role to give patients that normal feel. The residents may see all the creatures and the unusual way the town works as part of their distorted memory. This implies that the things Boyd experiences with the creatures and worms might be a representation of his fight with memory and identity, possibly caused by his Alzheimer's. In addition, the creatures themselves appear to be people from past decades, perhaps an expression of how dementia causes confusion over time and identity. This theory is very interesting if one considers the fact that hallucinations and delusions are common accompaniments of dementia. If From draws from the experiences of people in memory care facilities, then it adds a very profound layer of commentary on the nature of perception and reality, which makes the horrors of the show not only about external but also internal struggles of the mind. Theory 4. Are the worms a curse or an alien experiment? Wouldn't it be cool if these worms symbolize an old curse or perhaps an infection from another galaxy? This theory implies that these parasites could be greater than just simple monsters. It could mean the existence of a malevolent force attached to Martin, one of the show's most mysterious characters. If the worms are a curse, then this may speak of an old evil curse afflicting the town, maybe as a result of the townspeople's past wrongdoing or an incident associated with Martin's past. Maybe it is an immortality curse, as it is feeding on Martin for many years, but wouldn't let him die until he transferred the worms to Boyd. Once he did, he was dead in an instant. However, the thought of alien worms raises questions regarding their origins. Some fans interpret From as a sci-fi show, in which the worms are part of a larger experiment, possibly put up by aliens intent on understanding or influencing human behavior. The show's mysterious and dreadful atmosphere suggests that the residents may be pawns in a bigger cosmic game besides their personal battles. This theory refers to some sort of foreboding connection that the creatures seem to share with the themes of being trapped and the cyclical nature of the horror that exists in Fromville. Being trapped by an ancient evil curse or by advanced beings only heightens the sense of chills, while the show throws questions and dilemmas into the mind regarding fate, free will, and the unknown. Theory number 5. Do the worms act as antibodies against the creatures? This theory suggests that the worms in From serve as a form of antibody or poison for the creatures. This is indeed a very interesting perspective into the ecological dynamics of this show. The idea about the worms being a sort of supernatural response to monstrous inhabitants of Fromville functions quite similarly to how antibodies would in the human body to attack and neutralize a pathogen. If this were so, the worms might represent some sort of natural or supernatural balance brought in to control or destroy the danger posed by the creatures. A post on Reddit theorizes that the worms are an introduced species, as cane toads were introduced to Australia in the hopes of controlling pests, but within a generation, they became a catastrophic disaster in their own right. Similarly, it questions the balance between the species in Fromville and how the introduction of the worms may inadvertently shake up their delicate environment. If someone put those worms there to fight the creatures, or if they got there by accident, that makes these creatures not mindless beasts, but part of the life and death cycle, with newer forces rising to eliminate older threats. Basically, perceiving the worms as antibodies or poisons transforms the storyline from a simple horror into an intricate understanding of ecological relationships and the consequences of introducing new species in such a fragile system. These theories highlight the potential for more than one level of conflict within From, not only between humans and monsters, but also between different supernatural entities that make up this mysterious world. Marvelous verdict. That brings us to the end of this video. From presents a complicated tapestry of theories relating to the mysterious worms that were shown in Season 2. Each interpretation of these worms brings something new to understanding the complex relationships and mysteries of the town. Fans will continue to dissect the theories, and the potential for understanding the role of the worms will remain indefinitely tantalizing. Do you think the worms will appear once again before Season 3 comes to a close? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to show support if you like this video by hitting that like button. Also share this video with all the From fans you know. I'll see you in the next one. If you like our content, like it and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone!